I work at Commercial Progression. I've been there for about a year and a half. We are currently looking for developers, so if you like what you see, we use Drush every day, and it's pretty simple, so just come talk to us at any point. Drush is one of my favorite tools. At my old job, I was working on a Windows machine and an RDP. Everything was slow and terrible. And I didn't know Drush, and I knew that you could get it on Windows, but I didn't have time to try and get it to work. So I would have to clear the caches through the UI. It would take 10 minutes to run. It was just terrible. But if you run things through Drush, like clearing the caches, it's much, much faster. So that's why I love Drush, and I think it's one of the best tools. Disclaimer, it's best for Drupal 7. There's a new tool for Drupal 8 called DrupalConsole. That's going to kind of take the place of Drush, but you can still use Drush for Drupal 8.
Are they
similar? They're similar. Drush is very command line, and I think DrupalConsole works on the command line and also through the UI, but I have not looked into DrupalConsole very deeply.
So if you're using Drupal 8,
Mm-hmm.
then it really is not.
It's going to work. It works really well, but with DrupalConsole, you can spin up boilerplate modules really quickly from the command line, and Drush, I don't think is going to have that tool available for it. So there are things that DrupalConsole will be able to offer that Drush can't, but you can still use Drush for Drupal 8. All right, Drush stands for Drupal Shell. It's a command line tool, so you need to be somewhat comfortable with the command line. You don't have to know how to do everything, but it's something that you can run on the command line. You can skip the UI for a lot of different things. It does a whole bunch of different things. You can interact with modules and themes. You can clear the caches, run update PHP, and you can also do a lot of functions with the database. Right here on the right are a few resources. If you just Google Drush, you're going to get these as the first 3 hits on Google because these are the best resources that you can get for Drush. Like I said, it's a command line tool. It's pretty easy to install as long as you have Composer installed on your system, and it's not hard to get Composer installed either. If you have the misfortune of working with some Drupal 6 sites, you'll need to be running Drush 6. But you can run that in parallel, so you can be working on multiple sites that support different versions of Drush. So like I said, you can skip the UI for a lot of common applications. So these are things I use on a daily basis. We use a lot of different websites. We manage a lot of different websites, and we don't have to have a master password file because we can just go into the site root and type Drush ULI, and we get the admin login for the site immediately. If you notice the uninstall a module, it's Drush PMU. The PM stands for Package Manager. And these are the shortest aliases for Drush. Drush CC all is actually Drush cache-clear all, and so this is just a shortened version of it. There's a lot of those. You can type it all out. You can use the short alias, and that's all on the Drush commands website. Feel free to stop me if you're confused or you want to see a demo. I was going to do a demo at the end, but if you guys want to mix and match, we can do that too.
I do have a question.
Yes.
The Composer, I work off of a Mac.
Mm-hmm.
Composer work on a Mac?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Composer is also something that's really important for Drupal 8. You're going to be using Composer to install a lot of different site components for Drupal 8. It hasn't gotten a ton of love in earlier versions of Drupal, but it's going to be more heavily used for the future. So one awesome thing that you can do is you can just install the standard Drupal website right from the command line. You have to set up the MySQL database first, But if you ever installed a Drupal site from scratch, you have to go through like 5 or 6 screens one at a time, and this just does it all for you right away. Once you have a site up and running on your local machine, there's a whole bunch that you can do right from the command line. Drush status will make sure that it can see your database, so it's reading your settings.php file correctly. Drush up is something we use with DrupalCamp often. We run a service called DrupalCamp where we'll update your websites with security releases or the maintenance updates of the modules. Drush Update DB is really useful if you are you're making updates to a site and you need to do things like enable a couple modules or set some settings, and you want this all to happen without you actually going into the UI and clicking on things. You can actually put all this information in something called an update hook in your file, and then when you run Drush Update DB, it'll run that update for you. And that's what happens when you download an update for a module. You'll have to go to the update.php script in your Drupal site in order to run all the updates for your updated module. This does it all from the command line for you. Who here has used features? Yeah. Features is a module that'll let you export configurations into code so that you could store them in repositories or other places that you would store your code. So with features, you have some Drush commands. Drush FL will let you list all the features. So it's another way to get to your feature listing page and see what's overridden. Drush FUA will recreate all of your features, even the ones that don't need to be recreated. It'll just recreate them for you. And you can also revert from the command line. So you never have to go to any of those feature pages. I don't know if any of you have worked with a giant feature, but it takes forever to load those pages, and you get PHP memory issues when you try to revert them, but this skips all that stuff. You can also do things with the database. You can do a database dump if you're on the production site and you need to copy the database down. You don't have to log into MySQL to do it. You just use Drush. All right, this is where it gets into more complicated things. Does anyone have any questions so far? No? Okay. So a Makefile is something that you usually put inside an install profile. So when what we saw here is that we are doing a site install standard. So this is the standard install profile for Drupal. But we've made a custom one at Commercial Progression called Compro Install Profile. And this just downloads a lot of modules that we use very often on a site. Let me zoom in here. All right. So in a Makefile, you would specify what version of Drupal you would want to download in the first place. So we're saying we want a Drupal 7 site. We want to install ctools and devel and diff, all these different modules right from Drupal.org. And then right here, we specify that we want a dev version of this module. We don't want the latest one that's on the latest stable one. And then we have a lot of our custom modules. It'll just go and download it right off of our Bitbucket repositories for us. And then themes. You can specify themes and libraries that you want it to download. So a Makefile is not going to enable and install the modules that it's downloading. It's just downloading them and putting them in the correct place. So that's why you need to put it in an install profile. The install profile will run an update or an install script that will enable all those modules and install them. So here it's granting user role permissions, doing a lot of different stuff in this. I'll be posting this presentation to the website later so you guys can go and take a look around there. So now when we want to do an install with our custom profile, we're going to say drush make, give it the Makefile, and then say site install compro to do our install profile. And that way we get our own custom distribution of Drupal installed with a couple lines of lines in the command line. So now when you want to go and push everything to production, it makes it a lot easier. So the normal workflow would be your client comes to you and says they want something new. So you need to go and get their database and their files so that you can get a local copy of your Drupal site running. So you can actually do this from your local site without logging into the other server. You can specify what's called a Drush alias. So that's what this @prod means. So you say, I want to sync the SQL database from prod to my local machine, to Dev Hillary. And you do the same with all the site files. And then once you've done all this and you get your code up on the live site, you can just do an update DB, a feature revert all, and a clear caches, and then the site's updated. And you didn't have to go and do anything in the UI. Does anyone have any questions on that? That was a lot. No? All right, so this is where you would define site aliases. You would put it in the site's all drush folder of your site. So this is where I specify where it is on my machine, what that file directory is, site's default files. And then this is a Pantheon site that I have running. Pantheon gave me all this information, but it's pretty similar for any other site that you would use. And so that way I can do that @prod alias. We can also specify shell aliases in a different file in that site's all drush folder. And so this is going to chain a whole bunch of different drush commands together. So instead of separately saying drush SQL sync and drush rsync, we can just say drush sync live, and it'll run these two commands together. So this assumes that you've already set up your prod alias before using this. But this is just so that there's less and less steps for you to do. So one thing that a fellow developer at Commercial Progression was worried about was accidentally reverting whether or not you're pulling from prod or pushing to prod. Because if you mess those up, you've overwritten your prod database. And if you didn't make a backup, there's no way to get it back. So you can write in a little hook validate to your drush command that'll stop you from overwriting the production database at all. And it'll stop you from overwriting the stage database with anything but the production database. So this is something that we include in all of our new projects just so that bad things don't happen. We can also make our own custom drush commands. So I have an example here where if you run drush dev mode or a shorter command drush dev m, it will enable the devel, field UI, and views UI modules for you. So you can bring down the production database and run this command, and then you have all the modules that you need enabled. You don't have to wonder why you can't see all the views screens. So another thing that you could do with a drush custom command is you can specify an argument. So when we look at this command, drush fu feature name, that feature name part is an argument. So that's something, I think both of these arguments and options can be optional depending on the drush command. But like for drush SQL dump, you need a result file name. It won't let you not have one. So for this particular option, it's not optional. But so there's different things that you can do to take in parameters from a drush command if you're going to make a custom one. All right. Okay. So this is my drush, or a Drupal site I have. You run drush status. And it tells you the alias files that are available to use. It gives you all kinds of information. And this is kind of a sanity check that your local site is working correctly and it's connecting to the database. Let's see. Let's do.
Can you zoom in on the font?
I can try. What was that? That was a. Nope.
Should be control plus.
Yeah, I don't have a real plus button.
Oh.
Yeah. All right. Is that better?
Yes.
All right. Cool. Yeah, no problem. Okay, so that's our Drush status. We could do a Drush download, and we can give it a specific version of a module we want to download, or we could download the dev version. So we could say we want to download views dev, and it's going to ask us if we want to. Oh, okay, it just did it. Cool. Sometimes it asks you if you want to overwrite things, and sometimes it doesn't. So we can say we want to download a really old version. Wow. 7.x, 3.10. Yep. I'm rushing. I'm going too fast. All right, so it says it already exists. Do you want to overwrite it? Yes, please. Okay, and then when we do a drush up, this is a really old site, so it probably has, okay, so it already is saying we want to do a drush core update. We can enable views. It's not picking up the really old views install. See, it's automatically detecting all the dependent modules that need to be enabled for views to be enabled, asking me if I want to enable those as well. And it'll even download modules that are missing as well. Just put it all in the right place. As you can see, that was extremely quick. It just enabled a whole bunch of modules and downloaded some stuff. All right, so now it's picking up that view security update. Lets you know that it's a security update. It's telling me to not update Drupal 7 because it's a Pantheon site, and Pantheon has to do its own configurations for Drupal core. So that's the only reason it's saying that for this specific site. So if I say yes, it creates a backup for me so that it's not undoable. It ran the updates for me, so I didn't even have to go to update.php or run that drush update PHP or update DB, and then it cleared the caches for me. So now I'm going to log into the site. With my one-time login link. And this is the only part that takes a long time, is doing anything to the UI anymore. All right, so now we're in my simple little Pantheon site. All right, let's see. Was there anything else that anyone wanted to see? What other things can I demonstrate for you? We can do a database dump. We can do an SQL query right from the command line. You select all from Watchdog. So we can get the last 5 entries from the Watchdog table. Or we could do a drush Watchdog show tail, maybe not in caps. And it'll actually give us a prettier output if we do the Watchdog show rather than look at the straight database table information. All right, so now we can do a database dump. And you see, all this is like instantaneous. It doesn't have to do a request, an HTTP request to the server and wait for the server to churn everything back and then send it back. That's most of the time that a website takes, is dealing with the browser and not with the server itself. So all this is just super fast. It speeds up your development time like crazy. All right. Does anyone have any questions at all? Yeah.
Can you talk a little about the Drush module or Drush command that you wrote?
The new one? Yeah, sure. Okay. The dev mode one.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. So I think I have it in here. So let's see. All right, so I've got a custom module down here. Let me zoom in on this too. I don't know how to zoom in on this. This is annoying.
You could
Okay.
have everyone turn on these screens if you want.
What's up?
You could have everyone turn on these screens if you
Yeah, if you turn those on, you'll get a closer
want. The panel
view.
right here that you pull up, the panel, no, it's in the front of the, and then you just.
That front
select,
one here.
The two top blue screens.
Yeah.
And then you select instructor.
Yeah. So I mean, I have this all copied on the slide. So here's all the code without comments. So basically, it defines the Drush command, and then it implements a hook to actually execute that Drush command. No one has it turned on yet. Okay. So in order to just define your Drush command, you have to do hook underscore Drush command. So whatever your, I think it'll pick it up. How did I do it? Yeah, it has to be the module name. No, come on. Okay. So it has to be the module name, just like any other hook. So you created your custom module and you put the name of that module, .drush.inc. It's going to look for that file for any new Drush commands that you're going to create. So it has to be in module name .drush.inc. So once you're in there, then you implement hook underscore drush underscore command. So this first one right here. And in that, whatever the command's going to be, so drush blank, that blank is going to be right here. That's what it's going to be. So then you can do a description so that if you, I think there's a command to output all of the drush commands. So it would show up there to tell you what it's going to do. And then you can specify some aliases so you don't have to type out the long name.
Can you also specify options and arguments?
Yes, yeah, this is where you would do that, right in this command. Let me... So on drush.org, it has an entire page about how to do drush commands. So in here, it goes over how to specify arguments and options, and even give examples, and even specify the bootstrap that you would want applied to your drush command. So there's tons of different things you could do. I did a very simple one because I just wanted to enable some modules. Didn't really need arguments or options, but this is where you would specify those. And so when you have arguments and options, when you go to implement the drush command, those would be passed in as parameters to your function. And of course, it's not giving that. It doesn't have an example of this this one down here. So in here, your arguments and options would be parameters inside the parentheses here, basically.
And so you're accessing on the Drupal API functions.
Yeah, these are all Drupal API functions. And you can also implement like a validate method. So you can make sure that the users input anything before you start working on it and then throw an error type of thing. So you can give it back and say, you're not using this correctly. Please input something better and then run your function. So like I said, this one was really easy. We just want to enable some modules. So we just pass them in as an array to module enable, and then we can give them a success message. And so right here, we can use our little alias, Drush devm. And my module's not enabled, so it's not going to execute it for me.
This theft alert. Please do not leave your laptop, iPad, textbooks, phone, or anything else unattended for even a moment. Thank you.
All right, so. It's in custom, let's see. I forget what goes in an info file.
So does that go in your Drush configuration file, or like can that be a module, like a site module?
For the custom Drupal command?
Yeah.
For the custom one, it did not work for me when I just put it in sites all Drush. I had to put it in a module. Come on. I'm sure you could put it in other places because Drush is pretty smart about finding a file that it needs to find. Drupal's pretty smart about it too. So I have a, so Pantheon will give you a Drush file to download that has all of your websites in it, and you just put it in your home.drush folder. So if we go and look at that, you can see this is where giant, like tons of information from Pantheon, which I don't need all that, so I stripped them out for the example, but it prints all this out for you. So I don't have to put this in the actual site directory. It'll just find this in my home directory in my .drush folder. So Drush is pretty smart about finding things. So, quickly, a couple nights ago, I tried to put it in the sites all Drush directory and it didn't work, so I just threw it in a custom module and it worked. And of course, it's not working now, but let's try it again. Stop it. I don't know why it doesn't like that, but
You might need a .module folder.
that's it, yeah.
Are we just faking Drush out so that it will run?
Yeah. I'm testing it for you. There we go. It takes really long, even though there's nothing to install. All right, so now dev mode enabled successfully. I'm sure if we go and look at it, we'll see the field UI is enabled, but you don't know that it wasn't to begin with. So, another really common operation that I forgot to put in the presentation is something called Drush RR, Drush Registry Rebuild. Sometimes the structure of your site gets kind of crazy. This modules folder can just get giant. So what we like to do is have a folder for contrib modules and one for custom. And if you go and move your modules around, Drupal freaks out. It doesn't know where anything is. And situations like that will happen. Other things will happen where Drupal just can't find the file that it wants to find. So if you run Drush RR, it gives you a very scary warning. Like, you're about to break your site if you don't back things up. But when you run it, it goes and rediscovers all the files, and then you're good to go. It is not in stock Drush. It is something that you have to go download. It used to be a module that you would put on your Drupal site. If you go to the drupal.org/project/registry rebuild, it's going to tell you to not use that. So you have to put it in, I think you just do like a Drush download registry rebuild, and it knows to go put it in the Drush install on your computer and not in a site. So it is something extra that you have to install, but it is extremely useful when you're backed into that corner. Let's see. So that was the custom command. It can get a lot more complicated than that, but I don't make a lot of custom commands because Drush already has a lot of things built into it that I need. Shell aliases is something that I learned for this presentation. It's very, very interesting to me. That's going to save a lot of time.
What's the exclamation point in that?
So this is saying that you're going to put this entire line into a shell. Yeah, so it's just specifying that it's a shell command that's going to go in there. Any other questions? Anything? That was all I had for you. I've been doing a lot of object-oriented programming blog posts on commercialprogression.com. I've been converting a lot of our Drupal 7 modules that we have in-house to Drupal 8, and then trying to find lessons along the way. So there's a lot of code samples on those too. If any of you are interested in that.
Come join us.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Come join us. We're looking for more bodies. All right, that's all I have. Thank you. I think we're a little early.
Something real simple that I like about the newer 8 compatible versions of Drush
Yeah.
is no need for the DL anymore. Just
Yeah.
Drush-Y enable, and it's like, download it? Sure, you said yes. Enable it? Sure, you said. And so
The enable will actually do that now for Drupal 7.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, if you say,
the older versions, you always had to do the separate.
Oh, okay.
download, and that
Yeah, I
seemed,
think-
unnecessary.
Yeah. I think this is Drush 8. And I've been working with 7 and 8, and I think both of those. Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. So
Sometimes it does get in a recursive loop if it can't find the right module.
it does. I have seen that happen. Yeah. 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 So if everyone didn't follow that, say I wanted to download a module that I didn't have on here already. I mean, what's something else? What's web form? Okay. So if I just say Drush enable web form and then I do a -y, it's going to say yes to all the prompts that it gives me. So this is a module that's not yet installed. So it says, I didn't find it. Would you like to download it? And then it automatically puts in that yes. And then it's like, all right, cool. Do you want to enable it? All right, cool. And it just keeps going for you. So it skips a step there too. I can go over features as well. I don't know if I have it on here.
Could you talk a little bit about the shell command?
The custom one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't see
Let's see. I don't think I put it in the code. All right, so you would put it in drushrc.php, and it would just be a list of shell aliases. So this is the name for it. You would say drush sync live, and then it would chain a whole bunch of drush commands together for you. So when I was talking about deployment, what I do when I get a new project or a new task for a client, I would go and make sure I have the most up-to-date database. That's what the SQL sync part is for. I run all this on my local, and it just does an SSH into the other machine and downloads the dump file for me, so I don't have to go in there myself. So it does a SQL sync, So that downloads the dump file and then imports it for me all right away. And then the rsync will copy the files from site's default files from the production system into my site's default files. And so if you didn't want to type both of those out and possibly make a mistake and overwrite production, then you would create this one and it just chains them together for you. And then I put self in here so that it would actually fit on one line. And self is just an assumed alias to whatever current Drupal site you're in right now. So you can just do self and never specify like Dev Hillary.
So the curly brace notation that's instead of the at notation?
Yeah, I think it's just like an escape for special characters because you're putting all like this literal thing into the shell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So usually if I just write I write this in like bash script. Do
Yeah.
the same thing.
Yeah. We have a ton of custom functions that are all bash that we could be replacing with this stuff.
So
Yeah.
what's the advantage then of having it?
I think it's just if you don't know bash. This will also like probably not for shell aliases. 'Cause we already have most of the stuff in bash that we need. But for the custom commands, like I want to expand upon this to do dev mode so that like we've been doing Hotjar on our production sites to track clicks and stuff. We'd want to disable that when we pull the production database down so we're not spamming our Hotjar accounts. So this would disable things that we've put on the production sites that need to be disabled when they come down. Things like secure pages just don't work when you bring down to local. So just doing that automatically is going to save a lot of headache in the half hour of why won't it work?
Can you teach SQL sync to skip tables?
Yes, you can. Let me,
Advanced view
Like
tables,
watch them.
hundreds of thousands.
yeah.
You don't want all those credit card numbers on your other machine?
No, what I don't want is all those advanced queue entries.
Yeah.
That table takes 30 minutes to dump.
All right, so in SQL dump, you can just list the tables you want. You can give it a list of tables to skip. I don't know if sync will do that. All right, yeah, so you can skip tables. Just give it a list. Yeah, you can do crazy stuff with this. This is one of the really sophisticated ones that they've kept up to date with and added features to. Yeah, you can create it if it doesn't exist. Those kinds of things. If you guys want to go to our public GitHub, we have those bash scripts that I was talking about on here. So this is just our library of a ton of different things. So we can run compro alias, and it's going to add, I think it adds that that one file if it doesn't exist, the site name aliases.drushrc.php, and then it will, I think it just adds a dev alias. Yeah, so it just looks at whatever site you're in and adds that alias file, so I don't have to go into PHP Storm and write this all out. It'll just add that up there for me. So we have a ton of different bash scripts that do all the stuff for us. Like comprodl will look at our repositories for our tools and all the custom modules we have, so we can go and download our custom modules using this command. Does anyone have any questions about the command line in general? No? Okay. Yeah, so this was github.com/commercial progression. I hope you all now think that Drush is the best tool ever as well. I hope I did it justice.